cosmetic issue.
No, but
We are live.
the
Talking
paint job,
cards.
yeah, the paint job is covered by warranty because
Okay.
it's because if it starts deteriorating, it starts damaging, it starts rusting the bodywork.
Oh, okay.
Now it's funny. I almost had a blue car. I almost had that same blue car too, because the dealer was like, "Well, what color do you want?" I'm like, "Black, blue, something dark. That's all I care about. I don't want to wash it."
Do you have one that's already brown and has mud on it?
And he's like, "How about a blue one?" I'm like, "Sure, blue one." Then I go to pick it up, and it's a black one. I said, "What happened to the blue one?" He's like, "Yeah, found a black one with lower mileage." He said you didn't care. I'm like, "I don't."
Okay.
So
Drove away with it.
you end up looking out.
Yeah. Good evening, Tit Goblin.
Hey,
And I got some comics from Tit Goblin, which I'm going to show in a few minutes once we let people get a little chance to get here, because he did some art with the comics too that I have to show off. He sent me Mr. X Volume 3, 1 through 4, that he found in his local dollar bins.
ooh,
So
Cool.
they just got here to, and you know what's funny? I was going to make fun of Wilson tonight because I saw one of his videos where he was opening an old Spider-Man comic, and 4 backing boards weren't enough for him. He's like, it's a little, only 4 it needs more cardboard if you're going to ship this. I was like, wow. Wow, 4 backing boards isn't enough for Wilson for shipping a Tit Goblin is. You should see what I think there was 4 layers of cardboard. I have to show you this. I saved it. This is the first outer shell of cardboard. This is what it was mailed in. The mailing addresses, some cardboard he's got here. This was number 1. I was like, Wilson's gonna like this packaging.
I already do. Just that alone is leap years away from what I was getting.
Oh, I just realized my razor knife is still in the box. This is packaging number 2 that was inside packaging number 1 to protect it. And then we had a layer of plastic wrap with corners on it, bent over the corners to protect the corners. So this was wrapped all around. That was wrapped. Oh, then we have I forgot, this layer came first. We have the layer of newspaper with reinforced corners. So in one cardboard box, the cardboard box in it, the layer of newspaper with reinforced corners, the saran wrap with reinforced corners, before we finally get to the 2 pieces of sketch paper backing board that it was in. I was like, wow, that's some packaging. Wilson's gonna like that.
That is wonderful packaging, because it's not only protecting it, but it's also protecting it from the weather. It's protecting it from being bent. That's a wonderful job of packaging. Because again, I get so many things where it's just like
His packing goes to 11.
this kind of an envelope. So you got this envelope, 4 pieces of backing boards. It doesn't have enough protection. And I've done videos where I show how I pack an item, because I do like 4 pieces of cardboard, and then I do the bubble wrap, and then sometimes I'll put it into a bigger cardboard or not, because again, I knowing the prices of these things, and having my own eBay store and shipping stuff out and getting stuff shipped in, I know the price of what it costs for a comic book is about 10 ounces. So I know the price and how many things you could put in there and still be in that 10-ounce range, and still be close to $5 or less. And then I would get something where it's like, I'm still paying that amount, and this is what you send it in. People are being cheap on what they're getting. Now, granted, I also understand that when I went shopping for this stuff and I bought the cardboard, I did buy it in bulk.
Right.
And I bought it from Bags Unlimited, large amount of cardboard about 5 years ago. And I'm still going through that cardboard. So I bought so much of it. I bought so much of it, I had to keep it. I had to keep a lot. I had to keep one of the boxes in storage. So I saved a lot of money buying in bulk, but it's taken forever to go through that cardboard. And the downside is that I do have to cut. I still have to trim it. It is
Ah,
bigger than I would like, so I'm still trimming it. So I could see why I should have paid a little extra and got the exact size I needed instead of going,
okay.
well, I could save a lot of money. So I saved a lot of money, but I didn't save time because it's that I'm still cutting those cardboards. But again, um, buying it and then open then doing those videos, I do laugh when I look at them now because I'm still editing a bunch of them because I filmed them so long ago
Yeah,
before.
you're like doing some opening from like 2018. I'm like, whoa, this one's been
Yeah,
sitting
it's
around for a
because I was
while.
recording. I was recording, but not sure what I was going to do with it.
Ah, okay. He's posting them on his YouTube channel, by the
So
way, for anybody who
exactly.
wants to
So I'm going
go to
through,
Wilson's.
and then the other thing that's funny because from the videos that are up there, you could see where I was buying books I already gotten, and because of the dates, it was all in 2018, 2017. They're at least 6 months apart.
Mm-hmm.
In some cases, I would see a deal on a Spider-Man book. It's like, yeah, I don't have that one yet, or I think I have it. So there's at least two books that I've already done it twice where I bought it and then bought it again. And it was more of like I wasn't going through a list, I was going through memory, which is the worst thing to do. And I guess I bored Pablo. So uh so I was going through memory and trying to remember, okay, which one did I open, which one I didn't. And then some cases it would be like, oh, I wanted a better copy and I saw it for a great price. Because again, I do want to collect older Spider-Man books, the Silver Age stuff, but I don't want to go crazy with the prices. So I still
Right.
stay under a certain range. And then these are the books that I gotten from that group. But it was funny at one point I'm editing. It's like, didn't I do this book already? And then I check and realize, oh, okay, I did buy this and I did a video already, so I'm still going through it. And of
Ah,
course, I recorded these things without really prepping them correctly. So there's some videos I haven't put up yet where I'm too close. The camera's
ah,
too close, so the top of the comic book is cut the center, so you only see it from the center. Um, so there's that lighting, and again, I didn't have a real format. So now I'm going in and I'm not doing like erasing the ums and the
right.
stuff like I'm just letting it ride the way it is. Just doing a new opening and a new closing because again, I had a different mindset for whatever show I was going to do with that original footage, and it's completely different than what I do now. And it's like, well, I have these footage just sitting there. Why not do something with it? And I'm more amazed now how easier it is for me to edit stuff than it was back then.
Oh yeah.
It just took forever to edit stuff. And I'm going through the videos and it's like they're no more than I try not to make them more than like 10 minutes long
Right.
anyway. It's opening in real time and my little talk. But I originally thought I must have talked for hours on these things, and I didn't want to go through the footage because it's like I'll be sitting there for hours. And it's like, no, it was just 8 minutes. What was I afraid of in the first place? So I've been kind of having fun lately, just going through those unpacking videos and just loading them up. So there's plenty of them, not only comics but toys as well that I'm going to be putting up. And so far, they seem to be getting a lot of views. So
That's
I'm
good.
quite surprised. So I'm happy with that.
People
And there's
like
been some
Spider-Man.
interaction. Yeah, and there's been some interaction. So it's pretty cool.
That's good. That's good. It was a bit of opening these this Tit Goblin package was a little bit like a Russian nesting doll. I was like, "What? There's another doll in here? What? There's another doll in here?" And it's the first time I used this folding razor blade that I found on the side of the road while I was biking. Usually, for opening packages, I use my X-Acto blade. I know I've been
I,
using this for 35 years or something. And with an X-Acto blade, you use a delicate touch. It's a light blade, so it's just kind of like. With this one, I swear I nearly cut through everything because I was just like, because it's heavier and it's really sharp. It's a brand new razor blade. And I kind of went, and I was like, it just cut it. I was like, whoa. And there's a lot of blade there too. The X-Acto blade,
Yeah.
just kind of using the tip. So I'm like, oh, I got to take it easy with this one. Now I know how people cut right through the tops of boxes with these things.
I still use my Marvel, my official Marvel box cutter.
You had to get it to sneak it past Ike.
I had that before I came and kept everything himself.
Well, I should show you the artwork that Tip Goblin sent.
Oh, here, yes, please. Oh, very cool.
When the joke dies.
That is awesome.
What does it say? Spray paint, India ink, gloss, and acrylic. He says, thanks. And he's thanking me for all the all the content.
Oh, you should have, Tit Goblin, you should have done something else. The title should have been Aqua Dolphin, because that would be redundant.
I thought that was really cool. And there's actually a little more. Let me show you a little more artwork. Let me show you the Mr. X's first. Like I said, I've never seen these before. But if you notice in the bottom corner, that white sticker, he did cartoons of all of us.
That's
which
great.
I will show you in a minute because I scanned them in so I could share the screen. Let me do that so we can see them better. Present, share screen. Window. Where's our window? Hey, where'd it go? Hold on one second. I seem to have lost it. It's right there. How come it didn't see the screen? Share screen. Share screen. Not one of those. There we go. There's the first one. Jared says, this goddamn tape has no place near my comics. And let's see, what's the second one? There's Wilson.
Get me pictures of Spider-Man. I love that he did the Spider-Man shirt as well, the Peter Parker animated series shirt.
Oh, I didn't even get that reference. That's the Peter Parker. I like how it's not only Wilson, it's also Wilson transformed into J. Jonah Jameson, kind of. Because wouldn't he be saying that too?
Yes.
Hello, let's
Tanner.
see Paulo's. Whoops. It was published because in the 4th and 6th century AD, according to European tradition.
How dare you cut off my very important explanation?
Then we have one last one of Chris. Very cool. Which might be my favorite. Christian. You guys are assholes.
Those are wonderful. Oh. He nailed this greatly.
I'll send you some copies via Facebook so you can keep yours. I like that Chris one. If he shows up tonight, we'll have to show it to him again.
Definitely.
Whoops, wrong button. Stop share. There we go. Yeah, those were fun. I got the Mr. X's and some artwork. So take a bow, Tit Goblin.
Wonderful job. Those are great. Oh, is that the first artwork for the show?
I think so. I can't think of any other.
Yeah, now we're going to be expecting more of our viewers to send us artwork.
To send us artwork.
When I was 11 or 12, I accidentally shoved an X-Acto knife on a kid's head. Ooh. It went in just a few millimeters, I guess, but I was so afraid I had cut his brain. I thought you guys would get a kick out of those. We did.
Definitely did, yes.
Do you want to hear the story of the only time I cut myself with an X-Acto blade? Because if you did hand paste up, most people cut their finger or something, cut their fingertip off with an X-Acto blade, because you're always using a metal straight edge and draw an X-Acto blade across it. Because what happens is people don't pay attention and get their fingertip and not back far enough and go and end up cutting the fingertip, or they cut their side of their hand or something like that. I actually once stabbed myself in the calf.
Oh,
because I was laughing so hard. It was one morning that there used to be this woman who worked there, Erica Moran, very attractive woman, bosomy, used to wear tight outfits. And another guy, Jim Hostin, good artist. We all kind of sat in a row at this one time. And it was one winter day. We're just sitting there. Erica was in, I was in. We're just talking back and forth. Oh, no, pardon me. Jim was in and I was in. We're talking back and forth. Then Erica comes in and goes, "Woo, it's really cold out there," and takes off her shirt. And Jim, in like the horn doggiest voice, goes, "We notice," or something like that. And I just laughed so hard at Jim's dumb joke that I fell off the side of my chair somehow with the X-Acto blade in my left hand and stabbed myself in the calf with the X-Acto blade. I was like, "Oh, that hurt." Wasn't a bad injury, but man, that was just like. But that was the bullpen in those days. Crazy things happened.
Those are very complicated mechanics.
Yeah. Well, it was a high chair like this, but with no arms, I think.
Mm-hmm. A high chair that you fall from, and you manage to land in a position where you stab yourself in the calf, which is extremely hard to do, even when you want to do that.
What it is like, I had the X-Acto blade kind of in this hand, and it went down here, and I sort of fell over and fell into it somehow. I was like, "Ow, ow!" Then of course I'm still laughing and going, "Ow!"
Right. One of my art
said that in his creepiest voice.
One of my art teachers had told us a story about using a cutting board. Those the big ones. And I always remembered the story because he was alone in the studio when it happened, and he cut himself.
One of those guillotine paper cutters?
Yes. So one of the guillotine paper cutters, and he cut himself. So by the time that he got from the studio to at least one of the other person's office, he had lost a lot of blood. Where it almost looked like he was, getting killed because it was just so much blood. But it was one of those cuts where it just produced a lot of blood, but it really wasn't that big of a cut. And it was just like he told that story, and it was like this horror story. So all the students were like extra cautious when it came with knives and stuff like that. So luckily, even though I'm saying it now, luckily I haven't gotten any like cuts. There's always been nicks and stuff like that, and I think I probably had more paper cuts than actually cuts from like an X-Acto knife or anything like that.
Yeah.
Just because that story being drilled into me, and being in the Boy Scouts, they were always about the safety of knives and all this stuff. So we always heard stories because everyone tells the horror story. So it gets to the point where we're not too sure, and you become extra cautious. But yeah, metal ruler, plenty of times cutting a piece of cardboard, and if you ever cut, it's always make sure you change your blades out. especially with cardboard, because you can go through them quickly. And the moment you feel like a little bit of a tug, that's when you got to change the blade. Because the moment you just like push, that's what you're going to end up cutting yourself.
And these Mr. X's, like I said, this is the volume I didn't know existed. By Marx Gonzalez and Rowe. I had never even heard of anybody who did these Mr. X's. So I haven't read them yet since I just got them today in the mail. But I'm looking forward to them. New Mr. X stuff.
So does that mean now you have the whole Mr. X run, or are you still missing?
I'm still missing issue number 13 of the first volume. I think that's the only thing I don't have. But then again, I didn't know these existed, so maybe there's stuff out there I don't know exists.
Right, exactly. So I'm wondering if there are like various series that might be like that, where there's something.
I don't think there's any more volumes, and I think I have all the Dark Horse stuff that Dean Motter put out, but I'm not 100% sure.
Right.
But I got the second volume. I got my duplicate second volume this week too, so now I have 2 of the Return of the Brides of Mr. X. And I also got. Let me show you this volume. I also got this volume, The Modern Age. This is the one. Remember the 3 little books I showed last week? This collects all 3 little books, only big. This is the Dean Motter stuff from the early 2000s, the from the aughts sometime. When did this come out? This came out in 2017. When did the original books come out? This volume collects miniseries, Mr. X Condemned, and some stuff from Dark Horse Presents. Doesn't say when it was 2008 to 2010. I think that's when the miniseries was, and then 2012 to 2017. So this collects the Mr. X stuff from the 20-teens. Also can be found in those 3 little books, and I think there's some extra stuff in the back here too. That's not in the 3 little books. But I think volumes 1 and 2, well, I'll have to reread this, but I think volumes 1 and 2 are now my favorites.
Oh, okay.
I really liked volume 2 a lot more when I finally read the whole thing. Let's see, what did I get this week? Got some, let's show you the facsimile editions. Because I splurged and got the foil facsimile edition.
Ooh, shiny.
For $8 or $9. I can't remember what. The only reason I got this because I wanted a sample of modern foil to show my class. I like to have the different. I should have got that Blacklight one that was out 2 weeks ago, but I didn't want to spend $6 on just a cover, a DC cover that wasn't very good, even though it was a Blacklight cover. I'm like, yeah, they'll do Blacklight again. So I got that, and I got another regular edition just to file with my Hulks. I already have one that's in my facsimile editions. But I was like, you know what? I want one in my Hulk collection. As silly as that is. So they'll all line up. And not that I ever look through it much, but when I do, Hulk 181 will be there.
It's there. Yeah.
I bought the 180 last week to do this. Now they have to put out 182 again.
Going back to the foil cover, is that foiled in the front and the back, or is it just the front cover that's foiled?
It's just the front cover that's foiled. The back is coated, though. It's got like a plastic coating on them, but there's no foil on it.
Okay, and did they change, like, what is actually foil? Is it the white lettering is now silver?
The whole thing. It's printed on metallic foil with some kind of metallic ink.
Okay. So it's more of a metal cover type of thing. Okay.
The whole thing looks metallic. And boy, does it pick up fingerprints.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see if a microfiber cloth gets fingerprints off a foil cover. No, it
Was
does
still
not.
no? Oh wow.
Oh no, it is. Just had to rub a little harder on that one. So use a microfiber cloth on your foil covers to remove, and it also won't stay closed.
Right.
Mhm.
Use the foil.
Yeah, but that was a problem already in the 90s.
Yeah.
Half of those 90s comics, they could stand up, you know.
The problem is they would also fall right off the shelves,
Yeah.
depending on
Yeah.
how comic shops were displaying them. They would easily
Mhm.
just like flop right off the shelves.
There was one copy left on the shelf at my local comic shop, and the way their shelves are set up, they have like those shelves where everything faces outward. They're like custom built shelves with just a little lip, and you put the comic books. You put a stack of 10 comic books right on that lip. And the cover was just every time he walked by, Roy then would like close, or whoever would close the cover, and then it would just open right back up again.
Hmm.
So nothing you can do about that. Roy was like, I'm gonna have to put that one in a bag.
Yeah, it makes it so much simpler just because I've watched people, and I've done it myself working in a comic book shop where you put fresh books right on the shelves, and if you don't do the exact amount, all of a sudden they just all start going down, and it's like. And the other thing that irks me, but it always irked me about modern comic books, is you take them out of the bag, you start to read it, and within seconds, your fingers are sticking to it.
Oh
Where
yeah.
it's like, it's like there's been plenty of books where the back of the book would just have fingerprints because it was just literally right off the press for most parts, and they're still wet.
Marvel books notoriously, people say the ink would come off on their fingers.
Yeah.
But like what I always do, like when I'm at the comic shop and they hand me my stack of what's ever in my pull list, then I go and look at what's on the shelves too. I often will take the comic with the thickest cover and put it on the bottom so it doesn't stick to my hand. Because
Right.
those really thin covers that are on a lot of comics, the sweat of your hand will stick right to the cover.
Yep.
So it's like I'll take this, this Hulk 181 foil version and put that on the bottom because the plastic coating keeps it from sticking to my hand. But I'm
Yep.
always doing that. That's like one of my habits when I'm in the comic shop because I'll not pay attention. Like, oh my goodness, is there some? Sometimes that's why sometimes I buy comic books by the thickness of their cover. There's more than one comic, especially from Dark Horse, that I pick up and they're all paper thin. Where's Chris?
Yeah.
I want paper thick. So it's like, I'm going to buy this thick covered one and keep it on the bottom. Serves a dual purpose.
Yep. Yep. It's like, yeah, I need to. I usually, because sometimes I'll get a magazine while I'm shopping, and that would be the one that's at the bottom, and then the rest of the books on top of it. Because I've run into that so many times where you just be holding books, and next thing you know, it's like, why is it sticking to me?
Yeah.
Now,
Especially
Yep.
in the summertime.
I
Yeah.
was wondering how resistant is the embossing on embossed covers?
It's not going anywhere.
Okay, because if you put it at the bottom of a pile,
It won't flatten.
No.
It might go down a little. I'm not sure, but it's not. I don't think it'll flatten at all.
No, all the books that I've seen have been bagged and board, and they still keep their embossing.
Because the paper fiber has been changed. You can't really get it back into its old shape. I mean, you might be able to wreck it. Put
Well,
enough
you can
weight
easily
on
wreck it. You could try to press it, and it'll. You know, but yeah, all the embossed stuff that I've seen over the years, even when they were bagged and boarded and then put in boxes with other bags and boards, they still kept it.
Yeah, I don't think embossing's going. You'd have to put a lot of weight on it.
but those covers must have been a bitch to produce.
Yeah. Those are the
and
ones.
to print.
Well, the ones in the 90s John Romita had to draw the embossing. He had to do a pencil drawing that the printers would follow somehow, where he would show what areas were supposed to be raised up and which areas were supposed to be lower. That's how nowadays. I don't even know how they do embossing nowadays, besides turning embossing on in Photoshop. I literally don't know. I have no idea, because there's a feature in Photoshop where you can set the layer style to embossed, and it will in fact make it look embossed. I don't know what the printer does with that. And what if that's not the way you want it embossed? I don't know. I've never done embossing, and I would know how to draw the embossing because I've seen John Romita do it. But it's like, does anyone draw embossing anymore, or do they just go with whatever Photoshop gives them when they click on the embossing layer?
I don't know. I haven't done any embossing. I've done spot coloring, and I've done spot gloss,
right,
and stuff like that. And those are usually were just knockouts of the image you wanted to
die
have.
cutting. You just send them a PDF
What you want
where you
cut,
want the die cut. But embossing,
I did it for cards, and with the cards were more like, oh, this is the special effect going on the card. So it was like, here's the outline of the character. So everything within this black area is going to have whatever the special effect was. But I haven't done embossing. So I have no idea.
3D printer for embossed. My friend Rob just got a new 3D printer today. He was showing it off on.
But it's funny, you know, speaking about doing doing stuff to comics. What were amazing is, like, I think we had many people come up with ideas of what to do, but not know what to do with the end of it. Because if you remember, DC did those Eclipse where they had a little gem on the cover.
Oh yeah.
Because of that villain has the gem over his eye.
How do you ship those?
that was pretty thick.
Mm-hmm.
And that was probably indicated, you glue that item here. But they did not, I think about how do you pack that.
Yeah.
So I remember in the comic book shops, it would be the comic book, it would be that gem, and then there would be a thin piece of, I want to say it might have been wax paper, and then the other comic. But even with that protection, it's still embedded into the back of the previous comics.
Wax paper isn't going to stop a plastic gem from wrecking the comic above it.
Exactly, but I think it prevented it enough to at least pack it up and send it on its way, and then go, we're not worrying about it. Because again, it was probably a great idea when they thought about it, but did not think what that final execution is going to be. Because that cover too, if I remember correctly, was not a regular comic book cover. I think that might have been cardstock as well. So that gem was in the back of every comic book after that.
Wow, I forgot about that one. I think I remember seeing it, Eclipso. Or something.
Yep. And it's like, again, concepts are cool, but it's like, what do you do when it gets to a certain point?
Wasn't he part of wasn't there a Green Lantern event named after him?
I believe so. That was like the major crossover event from the DC books.
Something
that summer.
Eclipse.
Yeah, I think everyone was either affected by it, or there was a dark side to their nature, or whatever was part of that event.
Let's see, what else did I get this week? Death Dealer number 14. And this is the first issue of Death Dealer that I did not enjoy.
Really? Is it story-wise, art-wise?
Story-wise. There was just... It was the Roy Thomas issue. There was just so much text and so much explanation going on as they were. It was like a talking issue where it's like all these various people finally got together and got to talk about what's going on and what the plot is. And I got to tell you, I really didn't care what the plot was. I'm just like, yeah, barbarians, wizards, there's a plot happening. I'm not paying that close attention to the plot because, Conan plots aren't, this is a Conan book, sword and sorcery plots aren't that complicated. There's conflict and wars, and you solve problems through violence and magic. So there's just so much explanation going on that I was kind of like, oh, I found the explanation tedious. Let's put it that way. But hopefully we're done with all the explanations now.
Was he also writing the previous books?
I don't know. I haven't been paying that because there's the creative teams have changed on this over time. Denton J. Tipton is the plotter, and Mark McCann is the scripter. I guess the scripter is responsible for all that chit chat. The art was fine. Who's doing the art? Alex Medellin, Luis Antonio Delgado on colors, and Jacob Baskel on letters. But it's just this was. I got to say, this is the first issue that disappointed me. We'll see. 1 out of 14 ain't bad.
True, very true. And it might be just that one's the info dump of everything.
Yeah, that was just the info dump issue. It would help if I had cared about the plot. Because in the basic world of Death Dealer is something to do with there's a god or something who put themselves to sleep. And in their sleep, they dreamt up this whole universe. So it's like as if our whole world were tied to this sleeping god. And these big evil dummies want to wake up the god. That's their plan. I forget exactly why it's their plan. Something to become gods themselves or something. But the other people, the other sorcerers, like, no. If we wake up the god, we'll all cease to exist. That's a bad plan. And they established this all in the very beginning. So all this explanation here to me was just like, okay. It was more the minutia of everybody's plans at this point, rather than the overall plots of the comic itself. So it's like just a little too much minutia for me.
Right.
I think I've read that short as a short story in science fiction books at least twice.
Yeah, I've heard that before. The dreaming god is.
It's very Cthulhu.
Yeah. It's actually a little kid sleeping.
Little kid sleeping. Cthulhu, but it's amazing how much I've liked these Frank Frazetta books. I must say, initially I didn't even pay any attention to them. Then it was a slow week, and John at the comic shop said, "Hey, try this Frank Frazetta Death Dealer book." So I picked up like issue 3. I was like, "All right, I'll give it a shot," and I liked it. Was able to pick up 5th printings of issue 1 or 2 or something like that. That's what's good about it. I mean, I don't even know that was a hot book ever. I don't know why it was going to a 3rd printing. But I guess it did.
Yeah, or it could have originally had a shorter print run
Yeah.
and it was more popular than people expected.
Right. Who knows? Oh, I just pledged Jimmy Palmiotti's latest Kickstarter. Gun Girl or something. But I pledged the main problem I have with Kickstarters is it's the most expensive way to buy a comic. And I think I paid $15 for the digital one. I'm going to get 3 digital comics, 2 previous ones and this one for $15. That's okay with me. it's expensive, but just as much as I'd pay for a paper comic, and I know Jimmy, so I'll buy it. But it's like I think the actual like paper issue runs like $25 because that's just what things cost on Kickstarter with shipping and print runs and this and that. I don't begrudge them getting their money. I'm just like, that's a lot of money for one comic. And I think Dean Haspiel has a new one going too. And last time on Dean's COVID Cop, I got the physical comic. Once again, Dean's a guy I know, like his stuff. I think like for like one issue is $25. So it's always like, ooh. I might get it because it's Dean. I probably will, but I'm like, man, that Kickstarter is just the most expensive way to buy comics, and it brings up. Were you at Marvel with John Babcock Wilson, letterer?
I know John. I believe. I think I was there at the same time he was.
Okay. Well, anyway, John Babcock was a letterer at Marvel. In the bullpen, early 90s, he wanted to be a freelance letterer, but I think he dropped out during the digital age and found other things to do. But he said something back then during one of the deaths of comics, of course, which has always stuck with me, when he said, in the future, comics are going to be like poetry. They're going to be made for a very sort of small, select audience who's got the money to pay for poetry. It's like there won't be a mass media. And I think that's what a lot of Kickstarter is now. It's like made for a very narrow audience, Kickstarter, because it just, most of them, there's some giant Kickstarters, of course. But I think at least part way his prediction has come true. There is some comic books that are being printed like poetry chapbooks kind of thing, where if you want to buy some poetry, you pay, $20 for this guy's little book of poetry that he printed up 200 copies of and sold to whoever would buy them. Like, I think that's what Kickstarter is, sort of an upgraded version of.
I would always imagine if you're going to have a premium price, you should try to do a premium format.
Right.
So at least 40 pages of story. If you're going to charge $25, at least 40 pages of story, and there better be a hardcover.
Yeah, I don't know. There's all sorts of formats, all sorts of things you can choose, all sorts of premiums you can add on. But like the basic one was that. So it's like, which is why, I think Jimmy's was around the same price too, which is why I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go for the digital. I'm okay just getting the digital.
Is it called
Video Homicide? Hey, fellas, at work, wanted to stop by and say, yo, how you doing tonight, Video Homicide?
Hello.
He's got his own channel. He's been around for a long time. He used to be on GPAP's Hangouts, Google. What was that Google format? Google Hangouts. He was Bluntzilla back then. He likes horror stuff, and his channel he goes over. He makes some zines too, if you want to buy some zines. But I often watch his videos. He's got some horror stuff. He's into videotapes and horror movies and horror comics and fun stuff like that.
The comic you're talking about, is it called Trigger Girl 6?
Yes, that's it.
Okay.
That's Jimmy's new one.
Okay, because I wasn't aware of what when you were talking about it. It's like, I think that bypassed me. I did not see anything about it. But yes.
Trigger Girl 6. And I think, like I said, I don't know, like the digital one that I ordered also because I think the lowest price is the $5 digital one or something, and I just added the other two on that since I never got them before. Like, may as well get those. Which also reminded me, I haven't read my last what was it? Painkiller Jane from Jimmy. That was his last Kickstarter. Once again, I got the digital ones. And I was like, I don't think I ever read those. So I went and put them on my iPad so I can read them. when I get a chance. I'm like, I should really read them. I paid for them. May as well read them.
Exactly.
Good evening, sleepy reader.
Hey.
Howdy, howdy, howdy. Speaking of reading, I read a bit more of Black Science by Rick Remender and Matteo Scalera. And if you can remember, the last time I talked about it, I was complaining a little bit about the lack of clarity in Matteo Scalera's artwork. Well, that goes away, it turns out. That was only in maybe the first 10 issues, because it's a 42 issue thing. I think I'm just past the halfway point. But by the time I was like, I don't know, 10 issues into it, his storytelling is perfectly clear. He doesn't have a lot of that chaotic throwing around of ink that he had in the early issues. So I'm like, I wonder if that was a deliberate choice or not. I always wonder these things about what was that just the way he did things in the early issues and he didn't think about it? And of course, after doing 20 issues, things get streamlined a little more. But I no longer have those complaints about Back Science. Everything is perfectly clear in the storytelling. Makes me wonder.
Still not sure if I want to buy the Black Science Compendium.
It's a fun read. Take it out of your local library.
My local library does not carry comic books in English.
Ah. Was it the change in colorist? I didn't notice the colorist change. It was definitely a change in his inking style. He just did. Let me pull it out. See if I can give you some examples. Since it's in my currently reading bin. Let's see. Was there I don't know. Dean White was colorist 1 through 10. So maybe and Moreno Dinizo is 12 through 43. So maybe there was a change in colorist too. Let's see. Like something like this is really chaotic. But it's also a battlefield. So there's chaos in the battlefield. Once again, it's still sort of chaotic here. And I couldn't always follow the storytelling because of all the chaos. But by the time we got in the middle here, is he changing his layouts too? No, the layouts are about the same. By the time we got to and it is a different colorist. This stuff was just easier to follow. There wasn't as much. And just looking at it at a glance, it doesn't even look that different. I think he was just hitting his stride. Because as I'm looking through it now and not reading it, I really can't tell the difference. But as I was reading it, I could tell the difference. So it could just be that he's gotten used to, he's found his style of storytelling, and he's doing it much clearer. That's weird, because like I said, I really noticed a difference as I was reading it. I did not notice a difference as I was thumbing through it. So that's comics for you. Sometimes you have to read it to understand it. You can't just look at the pictures.
Right.
And do you guys have artists? I have a couple like this. Artists whose, as I'm just thumbing through and looking at their work, I don't like them very much, but as I'm reading their work, I really do. Enjoyed the story of Black Science. Didn't focus much on the art. Just kind of a backdrop for me. Okay. Well, I have to be able to focus on the art in order to understand the story in terms of, well, if I can't focus on the art, like my example would be Darwin Cook. I'm not a huge fan of Darwin Cook's drawing, kind of just looking at it. when I'm reading a Darwin Cook comic, I'm totally into it and love it. David Yurkovich, I don't know if you guys know who that. He was around in the 90s. He was an indie guy, did Death by Chocolate. Once again, a guy just flipping through his work, reading his work, loved it. So there are artists like that sometimes for me who, I don't know what it is, but just looking at their work, I'm just kind of like, whatever. But actually reading it and getting involved with, they're such good storytellers that I'm like,
Well,
I
Bob
think
Hall.
Bob Hall.
Bob Hall, he looks very average just
Right.
looking at it. Yeah, it looks like, oh, this guy's a fill-in artist. But then you start noticing the tidbits of storytelling.
Yeah.
And how they make, and how he carries your eyes through the page so you can follow everything. And there are little tricks on Squadron Supreme #1 that make the characters move from one panel to the next.
I have not seen any Bob Hall in a while. I'll have to look for I wonder if I still have Squadron Supreme. I don't even know. To look in my database. Some artists look better when you actually read the comic. Yeah, others seem better at first flip through.
I've read that Bob Hall's actual job was in as a theater designer.
Oh, okay. The Walking Dead is like that for me. Yeah, fine artwork, but great to read. Yeah, that's a good example too, I think.
I think for
Charles
me,
Adler.
it goes back to I remember picking up The Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller and
Right.
flipping through it and not liking it at all.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I actually read the book where it became something different altogether.
You were young when that came out too.
Yes.
Right?
Very
I can
much
imagine if you're
because
young.
I remember picking it up, flipping through it and going, I don't know what this is. And just putting it right back on the rack. It wasn't until issue 3 was out where someone was like, "You're not reading that?" And it's like, I'm in high school and it's like, it's a Batman book that I'm not interested in. It looks weird. And I couldn't get past that weirdness of the look. And it was like, I tell people, I picked up issue 1 and I threw it right back, before the big hype. And it wasn't until issue 3 where I think someone lent me a copy, or because they said, oh, you got to read it, I went looking for it. And I think by then issue 3 was already in second print. And it was like, all right, picked it up and started reading it. I was, you know what? This is completely different than what I thought it was.
The shock of the new.
The shock of the new was just too much.
Right.
And it was like, this isn't comics. I don't know what this is. This is completely different. And that would probably be the first book that I read that there was something different than I was used to. That it's like, okay, I need to branch out more.
Right.
And I think it was Bernie Wrightson's stuff that I was looking at where it's like, okay, there is something here just with the art instead of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like I'm looking at the artwork and looking at the detail, and one aspect is, why did he put so much detail in it? Does he need to do that? And that's again a different language by itself. I think he's one of the first artists that I said you could read just the art without having to read the story itself. And of course, with the story, everything merges together quite nicely. So those were the ones that, popped up. And then, eventually you start learning, what is Alex Toth doing in his storytelling in just the artwork, and learning about that. And then even going back to trying different styles and stuff like that, looking what's the Japanese influence and that was coming at that time period, and kind of learning that language, and then everything comes to be a little different. But it took a while for me to even try alternative books, they were calling them at the time, before they were indie books.
Yeah.
But those are the two that pops out. I don't know current who I'm thinking of. Maybe Eric Larson, because that was going back to Savage Dragon after being away from it so long, where it was like, oh, this is something completely different, yet the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Eric hasn't really changed much, but he has. He's become more Kirby.
Yeah.
in a way in design wise, but he hasn't really changed what he's been doing. But there's a different storytelling to it now.
I always thought that Ed McGuinness is that his style was inappropriate for comics, for superhero comics. And until I finally read an Ed McGuinness story, and then and then he makes all of a sudden the entire world as drawn by him makes sense if you follow the story.
Okay. George for Sleepy, George Perez improves when reading panel to panel. Yeah, what I really think is George Perez's masterwork is, I mean, I'm a big George Perez fan, but that Avengers JLA, which sat on my shelf for a decade unread, when I finally read it, I was blown away by George Perez's work in that. And even the writing, I think, who wrote that one?
I want to say Mark Waid, but it could be Kurt Busiek.
No, it was Busiek.
It was Busiek. Okay, Busiek.
I thought Busiek did a great job. Not only is it a masterwork in George Perez, Busiek did a masterwork too in sort of that, but you have to accept that sort of giant crossover style. Like it's not. It's a great comic, but only if you like that giant crossover superhero style. You can't give that comic to somebody who doesn't like that style. Like most of the writing was mumbo jumbo to me, but that's okay. I understand that comes with that particular style where you have this giant crossover between companies and all this, and the writer and the artist are really trying to find explanations that work, that makes all this stuff happen. Listen, I'm just not interested in those explanations, but I can overlook it because I know that's part of this particular type of comic. But now just looking at that one, I can open it up to any 2 pages, and George Perez's design work and drawing in those is like an old time Sunday comic strip. I really wish I could get that. Yeah, the oversized hardcover that came out like 20 years ago and is now $500. If that had good binding that opened up flat, I'd really like to see that in that edition because I get the trade paper, but it's like every 2 pages is just like this gorgeous George Perez Crazy Cat Sunday strip. It's just amazing to look at, I think. And even if you don't want to read it, every now and then I just take it out and look and pick 2 pages and watch the stuff that's going on in them. It's nuts. And sometimes read the balloons, the mumbo jumbo that's going. Like I said, it was a masterwork in that type of mumbo jumbo. It really was. They pulled all these various threads of how the Avengers and JLA could possibly fight each other and wove them together really, really well. But like I said, you have to like that sort of thing. Wilson made a good point. The first comic that was different, The Dark Knight, was everyone else's first different comic. Mine was Mirage Ninja Turtles after the creators stopped doing it. That hit him. The shit was like, what? What's going on here? Recently read The Many Deaths of Layla Starr. The art is cool. The secondary stuff is very sketchy, while part of the drawing important to the narrative is much clearer. Works great. I read a couple of issues of that. Despite the fact that I'm reading Grimm right now, I can easily get my fill of comic books about death and the afterlife. And that's kind of what Layla Starr was about too. I can't remember which one I read first, but I've been enjoying Grimm, but like just the whole comics about death and life and the heaven and hell and the afterlife. I can get my fill real quick on that, I bought I think 2 issues of Layla Starr and thought they were both pretty good, but then I dropped off it. But like I said, there's only so many death and hell and afterlife stories I can read. How about you guys? Are there a type of story you can get your fill with?
I'm not sure. There hasn't been. I don't read enough of them
Yeah.
is one of the things. So there's not. I was um I was in a bookstore the other day, and I was just going through their trade paperbacks,
Mhm.
and because I was waiting for something, so it was like I had a lot of downtime. So I was like, all right, maybe I'll read one of these trade paperbacks, and I grabbed the Spider-Man book. It's like, because it's like, I know there's so many things going on, I don't know what's been going on. So I grabbed the one called Fear Itself, and I'm looking through it, and it's beautiful artwork.
Get me
Get me
pictures of
pictures of
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. But I'm going through it, and it's I think Mike McCone artwork, but I wasn't getting into the story. I know it was part of one of those crossover events, and I know with the Marvel crossovers, you don't need to read everything. You could pick up
Right.
one of the things and get a gist of what's going on. And as I'm sitting there, it was one of the things that kind of reminded me of like why the X-Men was the last book I ever bought because it had too many words. I was like, it was Claremont being Claremont. So when I opened up this book, it was like it goes right into action, but there's just so much info dump, and it's like I'm not interested. This is not something that I kind of want to get into. So it's like, I'm not sure if it was just because this is one of those crossovers that happened in a Spider-Man book that didn't need to, and it almost felt like starting to read it where it's like, oh, it feels like this is a writer that was told, stop what you're currently doing, make this event go into this as well, and at the end, whatever happens here is not going to be that big of a deal. And you could almost see it in the writing when you're reading it, where it was like, here are characters that never appeared in a Spider-Man book, and I don't care for them. It just seems like, why are we focusing on this one person that we've never seen before?
Huh.
And why is this person important? And it turns out he wasn't. This is where they just happen to open up the story on this one person. They give you a lot of information about this person, but you get nothing about him later. And you completely kind of forget about him. So I don't know if it's one of those things where it's like, I really don't want to start any books in the middle of a crossover event. I want to read the X-Men, but they're also currently in the middle of a big event, and it's like I don't want to start there. So I think for me, where I like starting on an issue number one, and I thought that would be fun, but at the same time, my buddy Eric, we were in a comic book shop together. I picked up a few things, he picked up a few things, and he picked up, I think, I want to say it might have been Teen Titans number one, a new start of a series. No, sorry, not Teen Titans, New Mutants.
Okay.
And he told me about it, and it's like, the thing is, it looks like they canceled some title, and they're finishing off that title's issue in this issue number one, and it tells you nothing about this new team. He was like, he opened it up. It's like he's in the middle of a story that must have started somewhere else, and then they decided, oh, let's finish it off here. And it's like, why
so,
do that? And issue number one is supposed to be the start of everything. Why is it the end of someone else's story?
so what you're saying is you like to start fresh with issues number one, but just because it's an issue number one these days doesn't mean you're starting fresh.
Exactly. And it's like, I kind of would like to, treat it as the first time reading a book. Introduce me to everything. I kind of
Mhm.
miss, I'll sound like the old man. The older comics were better because at least you got a blurb at the top that kind of told you the what's going to happen. I kind of missed the when Marvel did the that info dump, that 2-page info dump that used
Right.
to give you basically what's been going up till now.
Yeah.
So
Previously in Spider-Man.
previously, and it gives you at least something. So other than that, I'm not too
Hmm.
sure if there's anything that I could say I'm getting sick of that they're doing. But I tend to try a bunch of things out. Um, so I'm not sure if there's something I have not run into that yet. The closest thing I could say I've run into, if you read comics long enough, you kind of pick up, oh, they're kind of redoing the same story.
Oh, it
Mhm.
means in Marvel and DC especially. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, I kind of like the original story of this.
Right.
Why are they doing it again?
because people like the original story.
Yeah.
And yes, mind the comics, I did like Carmen. I think that was down strictly to the talents of who did that one again? Guillaume March.
Yep.
He won me over with his storytelling and his drawing. Now that's funny that that was one where I don't remember the ending of it, but the whole time I'm reading it, I was kind of like, you'll probably be disappointed by the ending, but that's okay. Because it was sort of an afterlife story. It was about this, I guess she's an angel or Grim Reaper who came down to take this woman who just killed herself to the afterlife or something. And it was all these sort of offshoots and trails that they went on before getting there. And there were some other angels up top who she had to talk. But it was mostly about March's artwork and visual storytelling, which was just really, really good. And the actual writing was fine. That's one where I kind of, his just the pure visual beauty of his storytelling overcame my being tired of that afterlife genre. So that was a good one. I keep meaning to reread it, but I haven't. I don't know why. Post-apocalypse, got my fill of that. Dropped off so many. Yeah. If you remember, I don't know, months ago, it was like half my books were post-apocalyptic. It was like, and here's another post-apocalyptic book, and here's another post-apocalyptic book, and here's another post-apocalyptic book. There are a lot of them.
I can't read stories with teenage and young adult protagonists anymore.
Yeah, you know what? I have trouble with that too. I have not all the time, but which is funny in reading Radiant Black. The lead character is supposed to be like 35, but I keep thinking he's a teenager because he's drawn very much in that sort of Invincible style. Who Invincible was a teenager. So I keep thinking, I have to keep reminding myself, no, this isn't a teenager. It's kind of strange.
What I do realize, what sometimes takes me out of a story is when a writer would use text that's been used way too many times in their speeches or when they're talking. One of the ones that I cannot stand is because it's been used in movies, TV shows, comic books. It's the whole "this ends now," yelling that. And there was a point where almost every other comic book I read had that. Every action show or movie would have it. So when I would read it, it's like, this again. It's almost to the point. When you watch a TV show and they use the same song about "Let me introduce myself."
Right.
That particular song has been
Sympathy for
used
the
in so
devil.
many. Yeah, for the devil. And there's so many shows that have a devil-like character in it,
Right.
and they use that song.
All you have to hear is woo woo, and you
Yes.
go,
And it's like, oh, this song again. It's anything about Vietnam or war stories. Fortunate Son is always played
ah,
to the point where it's nausea, and it's like, and I get it. You're given a time period, and they do that. But they are always picking like the same songs, or they're always picking almost every genre. Of course, has a particular language, and they'll use that. But it got to the point where to me, is very repetitive. And it's just that I'm old enough to spot it, where someone's like, "Oh, that's a cool line. I'll use it here," but then everybody's using it, and the whole "it ends now." I just lettered that recently in a book, where it's like,
ah.
it's just like it gets used, and I feel like it's not necessarily used correctly because it's been done too many times. Because it never ends that now. That was just a punch the superhero did, and there's going to be at least still fighting for another 4 or 5 pages.
That was probably used a lot during what I call the cool moment writing phase. which was around the time of the Ultimates. It kind of came out of the Warren Ellis era, and then that got transformed into Ultimates. But I called the cool moment writing phase because it lasted for about 5 or 8 years or something. Like a lot of the mainstream books, especially, were written around having cool moments in them. If you read like the
Yes.
Ultimate, and the cool moments were often the start of a fight or someone showing up. Like the Ultimates would end with Captain America showing up, going, "This ends now." Then the next issue was just like bland, whatever. It never lived up, and so the whole story structure was like boring, boring, boring. Cool moment, fight scene, boring, boring, boring. Cool moment, but the whole story revolved around those cool moments
Yeah,
of
I
someone saying this ends now, or often it was just someone showing up at the end of a comic. It was like it's like
I've,
okay.
I've seen that as a description of every episode of The Walking Dead. Boring talk, boring talk, boring walking, boring talk, boring talk. Uh, a little tidbit of information about what actually caused the disaster. Zombies show up. Zombies show up. I'm so tired of this. I never want to watch an episode again.
Mhm.
Something set up for the next episode. Oh my god, I have to watch it.
Yeah.
yeah.
That
So
was my criticism of Umbrella Academy too. I didn't make it all the way through Umbrella Academy. Umbrella Academy would have something exciting happen at the end, then a whole bunch of boring talk all through it, then something exciting happen at the end, and I can't take this anymore.
yeah, that I did notice that a lot where it was like it would end with something, oh, that's going to be amazing in the next episode, and it
It's
just
just not.
doesn't happen. The trope that I've been seeing lately in especially on TV and it's sneaking into comic books is that it ends with something amazing, and then when they start, and it's usually they've done it many a times now lately for season ending,
Ah.
and they end it at some place that is technically a cliffhanger, and then it's like the new season starts, and then 6 months later has happened. It's like, but you left it at a cliffhanger. What? Why? Why are you saying the a few months later happened? And and I think the first time I noticed it, and it wasn't until it was explained later on like a YouTube thing. There was a Star Trek, Next Generation that ended like that. The episode with Data's head, and they go back in time, and it ends at a cliffhanger, and then it starts, and it's like a few months later. They've the crew is in the past. They all have little jobs that they're doing while they're trying to solve this mystery, and I get it story wise. Oh, because if you start it right at the end of the cliffhanger, you're not going to have enough story to tell the whole story. It's just going to
Hmm.
be like, how do they get here? So they give you an info dump at that beginning, but it's like, okay, that makes sense. I watched a YouTube that showed why it made sense. Okay, I get that. But then I'm starting to see that kind of in comics where it's like you don't need that. You do not need. You started on the action. You ended it with there's going to promise to be action. Give me that action in the next issue.
The older we get, the less books, comics, otherwise are written for us, especially once you get past 50. And that's why we complain that comics aren't as good as they used to be.
Hmm.
But that's not just it. I think that's stories featuring young protagonists used to be about the discovery of responsibility. So there was always the need for the character to grow up at the end. And nowadays, and this began back with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. So it's been it's been there a while. It's not a new development. The young characters are there to be awesome because they're young. You're not awesome. You're young. Yeah, and I was a teenager when the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers debuted on Portuguese TV, so it was made for me, and I hated it.
You're not going to like everything that's aimed at you.
Yeah. There's the other thing with again watching things for a while. You start spotting things the same. There have been plenty of movies and shows. It's like, a lot of this conflict would not happen if just the two main people talked to each other and had a conversation. It's always the I got to show you this important information. I don't have time for that. I got to go here. And it's like 5 minutes.
Now what? No.
Talk for
Oh,
5 minutes, and it would just.
I want to tell you this key plot point, but I want to triple check it first, just because, telling you it would solve all our problems.
Right. It's like, you never
yeah.
listen to me. Here's the important information. It's like, we learned that through the whole uh, Cobra Kai series. If two people have just sat and talked to each other like adults, even the kids, if it's like, no, I don't have time to talk to you about this, or it's like, you never listen to me. It's like just 5 minutes. 5 minutes talking to each other will resolve everything.
Oh, what I have no patience for is in comedies when there's the case of mistaken identity, which sets up the joke. It's so tired.
Well, it's like that episode of Three's Company when they had that misunderstanding.
Another comic I got this week, Psychodrama Illustrated. Gilbert Hernandez. This is like a continuation of Love and Rockets. I mean, there's Gilbert doing Love and Rockets stories because with his town of and this one is who is it? Not Luba, Fritz. There's three sisters. I've been reading it for years. I still can't remember which sister is which. Fritz is the one who's the actress. They're all big boobs. The big book that's named Luba is only named Luba because she appeared first. There's just as much about the other two sisters in all of his stories. And in his stories, Fritz is a famous Mexican B-movie actress. So a lot of it has to do with her life and this, but occasionally they give us stories like this one. And there's actually two stories running. And she was in exploitation films, so there's a lot of nudity. So we get this story up here. Then we get another story down here. And these are her movies. So this whole issue was one of the exploitation movies she was in. So it's kind of funny. You're reading what's supposed to be a movie in the Love and Rockets world. And the story, this particular story is all about Fritz is in this movie where she's stranded on a deserted island with this young kid who eventually grows up and they become lovers. But then these natives from the other island come over. They start fighting with each other. Then Fritz has a daughter. You don't know if it's one of the natives or him. And it's just this weird exploitation B movie thing. But it's just good. I mean, it's hard to describe it. Like, this is one movie. And then there's even like in the Fritz timeline within Love and Rockets, I think it was her niece who kind of looks like her, almost became a movie actress too, but not as famous as Fritz. So sometimes they've found like lost footage from a movie that Fritz made, and they have her niece act in some of to like expand the movie so that they can re-release it as a Fritz movie. So he even does things like at the end, double-lined frames indicate new material filmed for this previously unreleased project. So then you go back and go, oh, some of these little panels down the bottom have double frames around them, and that's the new footage that was filmed with Fritz's niece. It's just kind of like he's got this whole B movie world around Fritz's character. That's just I have up there, I think 3 or 4 of them, graphic novels even that he's done of the movies that Fritz has made. Like, what is that one? Chance in Hell is one over there. There's a couple of others that are Gilbert Hernandez graphic novels, and you wouldn't even and it like doesn't even say it in them. You just kind of have to know. If you were just like to come upon them, you'd read it and be like, oh, this is a weird exploitation comic. but it's really a film of one of the characters as an exploitation movie. So it's a strange thing, but I think this is one of the few books that's written for people our age too, over 50.
I mean, it's fascinating how they're really expanding their own world, which is giving you the movie stuff. I mean, story wise, it sounds
Yeah,
really interesting. Is that comic book just a regular size comic? Because the cover is giving me the illusion that it's an oversized comic.
there's a regular sized comic, but inside, I think he drew it at that because the inside artwork is smaller than usual. I think he
Okay.
drew it at the small graphic novel size because his graphic novels are like that 6x9 size they're put out. So I think this is drawn at that 6x9 size and printed here, which gave him room. This comic strip down the bottom is a completely different story, a completely
Right.
different movie. You see, that down the bottom is a comic strip that's supposed to be another movie.
Hmm.
So you've got two movies in one comic book.
Wow. Okay.
But like, this is the first issue of this that's been like. I think this is just because he's faster than Jaime.
Hmm.
He puts out more work than Jaime. So, like, this is only up to issue 6, and it's been out for years. And the other issues were about Fritz, but they weren't all about the movies Fritz does. It's like I think that's Fritz on the back, and that's her niece up there with the curly hair. Oh, this is who played who. So that guy with the bald egg head was played by that guy up there, I think, and that kid was played by that guy now.
Oh,
And
okay.
that's right. There was a little girl version and a grown-up version. So those are the two actresses. That's what the back is. Wild, but yeah, I love Beto's stuff. If you've never read it, I recommend it. I know you guys haven't read much in Love and Rockets, but now Paulo, did you finish Mr. X, Paulo?
Not yet.
Mm-hmm.
The short stories are the hardest ones to get through because they don't have anything to do with the main story.
What is in that book you have?
Uh,
Which volume is it? Does it have?
it was volume 1 from iBooks. So they put I know there's a second volume, but I didn't buy it. So there's issues 1 to 4 from volume 1.
Okay.
Was a few short stories that were published later. But this doesn't say where from.
Right.
I think there's the odd one shot that came out through Vortex. But the person and that was my problem when I tried to read this for the first time because it starts with one of the short stories instead with issue number 1.
Right.
And it has nothing to do with the story.
That just reminded me. I think I have an order coming from mycomicshop.com. Should be here on Monday if UPS doesn't go on strike, because UPS might be going on strike on Monday, and my comicshop.com order is coming from them. But I believe I ordered, I think, 25 comics. With tax and shipping came out to $100, so about $4 a comic. But they were all from like $2 to $6, various things. Just like I have a want list on mycomicshop.com that I order from like, once a year maybe. So I was finally like, let's just order some stuff from them. And I think Mr. X13, I think, is in there, the one I'm missing. If I remember correctly, they had it. But it's like the volume I have, Volume 1 has all of Volume 1 in it, so it's got 1 through 13. I think I'm up to like issue 12 or so and reading that, but it's starting to fall apart. You can see sort of the first volume losing steam as it goes on. And the stories get kind of more haphazard, and Seth's art starts distilling down almost to what he becomes, but not quite. He doesn't have he's not quite doing Mr. X anymore. He starts doing Seth, which I love his stuff, but think his earlier issues of Mr. X were more Mr. X-like. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's do a read, rip, and slab. Let me see what I've got ready. I don't know if I don't think we did March 1941. I don't recognize it. Let's see. I don't want settings. I want present. Hate when I hit the wrong button. There we go.
Ooh.
Crackerjack Funnies, number 34. Mystery Men Comics, number 22. And Prize Comics, number 10. I know nothing about any of these. Besides, they all have yellow backgrounds that Scott Connor wouldn't like.
Blue Beetle.
Okay, so that's Blue Beetle, or early Blue Beetle.
Oh, that's early Blue Beetle, huh?
Yeah, that's when he was, I believe, a police officer. I don't think I've heard
Owl and
of the
Crackerjack Funnies.
Owl. I never heard of Crackerjack Funny. Prize Comics I've heard of. I may have seen that cover, but I do not know who that main character is.
The Black Owl. Never heard of him. But one of the inserts uh, is the Green Llama, who keeps
Green Llama
getting.
I've heard of.
Yeah.
They keep bringing him back because it's in the public domain.
I still
Yeah.
can't believe the Green Llama was a superhero. I first saw him in the Steranko History of Comics. When I was a kid reading that, and I was just like, the Green Llama, this can't be real. He was a popular superhero in the early 40s. I'm like,
Was he popular, or just that was the only book available?
he was in a lot of comics.
Right.
He didn't just
But that's
appear once.
Yeah, because it's like, again, to me, it's he always pops up because of the public domain characters.
Right.
Who's in public domain, and what have you, and it's like, I cannot see you making a superhero out of him. But he was a superhero. But it's just, I guess it's just that the Green Llama does not roll off the tongue.
Tip Goblin's going to read Crackerjack, Rip Mystery, and Slab Prize. He went right in order.
No,
Yep.
I'm going to read Crackerjack, but I'm going to rip Prize and Slab Mystery.
I'm going to read Crackerjack because I have to know, is this guy actually a giant or not, or is that just a cover? And chances are it's just a cover. I think I want to Slab Prize because I think that's the better looking of the covers, which means I would have to rip Mystery Men Comics.
I think I'm with Wilson. I like the you two. I want to read Crackerjack Funnies. It's a good name.
It's a good name. The Owl, and it's like, I gotta know, is he a giant or not? And I like the costume for the character on the Prize.
Yeah, so do I. I like that. I like that cover.
I like the
Like
cover.
the
I like the
cape flips
design
up
of it.
and holds up the logo.
And it's a two-color cape.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You usually don't get that with capes. So because that to me is like, that's not a cape thing that happened until like the 90s.
Read Crackerjack, Slab Prize, Rip Mystery, Dolphin, the pole the guy is strapped to.
Yes. Either that
Dolphin.
Either that or a Dolphin, the tank shooting at the Black Owl in Prize.
I was thinking the tank, maybe.
I was
Did
thinking
he have
of
llama powers?
Yeah, the proportionate strength of a llama plus the spitting power.
I think I would Dolphin the Owl. I think a giant dolphin in the city would just be amazing. Holding and getting ready to throw a car. I'm going to have to look up these books later, and I am so curious about that Crackerjack one. I got to see, because I think it's I bet you it's a story that we could read on Comic Book Plus.
Probably. Hold on, let's show for the people who weren't here earlier. Kit Goblin sent me this with some comic books. This lovely dolphin. Whoops. When the joke dies. So there we go.
Yeah, other than just being named Llama, I don't think he has any powers of a llama.
Didn't he have like mental powers or something? Because like I thought he was like llama, like I don't know. There's some kind of holy man,
I think so.
like the
Again,
Dalai
it's one of
Lama.
those characters that keeps popping up when we're talking about copyright-free characters, and I'm sure I read his bio on something
Yeah,
and I keep forgetting it. Maybe that's his power. It's a mental power that he makes you forget him.
yeah.
Because again, there is nothing about the character that makes me think how can he be such a popular character? But again, he's one of those that keeps popping up.
Well, he's never been popular in my lifetime.
Yeah. Again, I think the popularity is that he's available.
Mythical powers like Doctor Strange. Yeah, I think it was something like that. It was like either like Doctor Strange or Professor X, something like
I
that.
think I want to connect him more to Dr. Druid.
Okay. More
Where
earthly powers.
here's a magical character, but no one cares about. That's where I think I position him in my head.
And I still don't know why he was the green llama either.
Dressed
I
in
would
green.
I would assume it's that superheroes need a power and a color. Green Lantern, Blue Beetle. Right now, comic book characters, color is the way to go. Bright colors, we'll name them after. Black Cat. That's all from the same time periods.
And we get a new jumping on point with Savage Dragon. As it looks like he's moving to San Francisco. Here, I got to show off this cover. This risque
I was curious
cover.
which cover you would have got, because I think there were 3 covers.
Oh, this
available.
is the only one I saw. I've gotten my pull list. So.
Oh, okay. Because I know I saw someone. There was an advertisement or something that showed 3 covers for the.
I know usually he does this cover, then he does a 1970s Marvel trade dress style of the same image. I don't know if he did a third, or he sometimes does a third or whatever. But I call this the weirdo San Francisco cover. But he's leaving Canada, moving back to the States, getting some sort of government superhero job. And his kids don't want to leave their home. So there was a lot of,
angst.
Malcolm Dragon talking to his kids in this episode saying, hey, daddy's got to do what daddy's got to do. Sometimes for the good of the family, we have to move somewhere. Kids are like, no, I don't want to leave my friends. So a lot of childhood angst in this one. But another good Savage Dragon issue. They're always good. Why do they like green so much? Good question. The Green Dragon. It had been in 1941. The Green Dragon.
I picked green because red and blue was already used by the main big superheroes.
Yeah. And Malcolm Dragon is a different color than Savage Dragon. Because I think his mother was black.
Yep.
So he's got like a gray skin tone to his green.
Mm-hmm.
But no one really complains about Savage Dragon being black. No one noticed.
And the kids that are on the cover that are also dragoned, are they all his kids, or did he adopt?
I think they're all his kids at this point. He almost adopted another one.
Malcolm's married.
Right.
It's that Asian girl there.
Right.
It was like half his size.
Who's what?
She's half
Right.
Malcolm's size,
Mm-hmm.
but she has an insatiable sexual appetite.
Right. That's part of her character.
Mhm.
And they're both young too, because I think he was like 20 when he got married. She was like 24 or something. I don't know how many years have passed since then, but
Oh, okay.
because it takes place in real time.
I don't think it takes place in real time.
No,
I
it
think
does.
it's moving faster than real time.
Well, we only get to see them once a month, so what it's moving faster in real time in some respects, because like a 3-issue story can take place over a day,
Mhm.
but that means the next story is 4 months later. So it definitely can seem like time is moving faster because
Even then,
we're not
so
seeing every moment of their life, kind of thing.
Dragon debuts 30 years ago.
Right.
Malcolm gets married at 20, and his oldest kid is like 10. So he's 30.
Yeah, I don't even know.
But
I've lost track.
but Malcolm debuts like in years 6 or 7 of the Savage Dragon.
I don't know if it's the same Malcolm. Maybe it is. Like I said,
Oh yeah, they had a crisis event.
yeah. They had more than one. Matter of fact, the last one they had, the Savage Dragon is actually back, if you can call it that. In that, there's a character called Paul Dragon, who I think was the first Savage Dragon, because there are actually 3 Savage Dragons in Eric Larson's career. Like the one he drew in high school was like Paul Dragon or something like that. And then he drew one other one who was somebody else dragon. And then there was the Savage Dragon from Image Comics. He has intertwined those first ones back in to the series as they were alternate universes. And one of the big events he had, I don't know when it was now, probably 60 issues ago, was they had the all the alternate universes got compressed down to one universe, so that everybody for a while, and they still do, have the memories of themselves in every universe. Drove some people crazy, and is it all sorts of. But anyway, Paul Dragon, who was, I think, from that, he doesn't have a big fin, he's just got a little ridge. From the very first high school series, I think it was, he ended up getting the memories from all the Savage Dragons. He's the one who survived. So to him, Malcolm is his son. But Malcolm doesn't accept Paul Dragon as his father because he doesn't look like his father. So there's this weird dynamic going on where Paul Dragon is trying to win the affection of Malcolm Dragon because he's his son to him. So that's and also Paul Dragon, he doesn't have the Savage Dragon's healing powers. Mm-hmm. He got his arm ripped off, and they had to build him a robot arm. Mm-hmm. And they built him a robot arm. He got that ripped off because they only gave him the scientist only gave him the free model of robot arm. He's like, I thought you were retired. You can't fight with this arm. An arm you could fight with cost, way more than this. I can't give that away for free. I plead the fifth how I'm reading Savage Dragon. That's right. He said, you're reading Savage Dragon, right? Mm-hmm. No one said Malcolm ruined my childhood. No one. He changed Savage Dragons and everybody just rolled with it.
Yeah.
No problem.
I think Larson needs to speed it up because he's releasing like 2 or 3 issues a year now.
He's gotten back this year. I think it was last year there was like no issues. Or there was like 2 issues, I think, last year. This year we've had a few so far, but I'll take them when I can get them.
Because he needs to get to 300 so we can claim that he finally beat
Dave
Sims record.
I think, what was I was just looking at Usagi Yojimbo. I think he's at 261 issues of Usagi in the various series, in miniseries. Good evening, fine gentlemen. Savage Dragon is the topic today. Count me in. Yeah, we were just because I got the latest issue this week with the moving to San Francisco cover. And I like this cover. Bob's Donuts, San Francisco. Oh, one of the things, he has a lively letters page in the back that I never read. He's got like a tiny, 6-point type, 1, 2, 3, 4 pages of letters. So if you like letters, here they all are too. But I usually read his announcement up here that's in green, and he's like, welcome to Savage Dragon 266. So here we are. The next phase begins. Interesting enough, the bulk of the series has been set in cities that I'm not overly familiar with. He lives near San Francisco. I think that it might be a fun change of pace, bringing the characters to a city as I'm familiar with. As with everywhere else in the book, this doesn't necessarily mean it will be set in my hometown forever, or that San Francisco will be accurately depicted. But it's in San Francisco now. I want that.
I want the comic to move to Des Moines.
Des Moines. Just because I live here doesn't mean I'm going to get the details right, okay? But he did do a nice little Maxine and Malcolm touring San Francisco page. Let me see, where is that one? Where we get to see the sights. There we go. Get the Golden Gate Bridge. That road that winds all the way up. I'm showing the right page. Nope, I am not. The trolley car. The Chinese pavilion. The homes on the hillside. There's the windy road. Oh, is that did that Hitchcock movie took tape? Where was that Hitchcock movie with the bell tower? You mean Lisbon?
I don't know.
I like the cover. Savage Dragon showing his full face. I keep forgetting to buy it. It came out a while back, maybe 2 years. I'm not sure what that one is. I must have it. Property of Alcatraz Penitentiary. And there was a weird scene in here too that I didn't quite get. One of Malcolm Dragon's powers is that Savage Dragon didn't have is he's got an electrical charge that he can use to shock someone.
Yeah, came from his mom.
And there's a scene in here where the little girl, little Savage Dragon girl here, they're moving out of their apartment in Vancouver. I think that's where they were. And where is it? This neighbor comes over to say, knocks on our door. Who? It's your old neighbor, Craig. I heard you guys were moving away, and I wanted to say goodbye before I left. I didn't even know we had another neighbor, Craig. Oh, sure. I've been a boot the whole time. And Maddie? And he goes to hug the little girl, Maddie, goodbye, and she shocks him. And then the next page, we get another scene. I was like, why did she shock him? I'm not even sure. He didn't explain it. He didn't go into it. She just shocked him. Okay. I don't know what I'm supposed to infer from that, but
Hey, it's the first time she's using her power?
No, she's used it before. Because
she has.
Talked to her about it. Yeah. Because they're like, you've got to be careful, we don't want you killing any of the other kids, kind of thing.
I wonder if it's a running joke that she always ends up shocking that guy.
I've never seen that guy before. Not that I remember.
Okay.
That's what's so strange. Yeah. Vertigo. Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of. Is that was? Did Vertigo take place in San Francisco? Oh, the San Francisco Mission. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. I don't know if that was it in there that had it's like that has the big tower in it. The letters page is one of the reasons why the comic is so good. Larson answers are a must. Yeah, I've just never been able to bring myself to read that teeny tiny type.
Yeah, well, you try reading the letters page on Spawn. Actually, you should try reading the TV guy speaking and then read the letters page.
That's what I thought maybe the implication was of that shock, but I don't know. Maybe it was possibly, it could be. Maybe that's why she shocked him.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, hey, I'm your neighbor Craig. Can I? But we've never seen you. Whoa, I've been around all the time. Can I hug you? No, but you get shocked.
But I figure how would she, the little girl, know? Unless she's
a little girl.
What was that?
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. She doesn't know him. She invades his personal space, and she has electricity powers.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that I can understand.
If she didn't have electricity powers, she'd punch him in the balls.
Mm-hmm. She was just being a little kid.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But it was strange there was no follow-up, not even her mother looking at her. Moved on to... Eric Larson sometimes cuts pages out of his, story or whatever. Sometimes he shows the pages he cut out or whatever in some random story. So maybe he cut a page out of there. So I like it this way. Who knows? Well, did you start Savage Dragon from the beginning, Paulo?
No.
Where'd you start?
230 something.
Okay.
The last time I'd read it was, so I have the first 2 or 3 compendiums, so I probably hadn't read it since 50, 75, something like that.
Okay. Are they bringing the new Savage Dragon hardcover over to Europe? Do you know?
Well, I can probably get the US edition, but nobody's publishing Savage Dragon anywhere nowadays.
No. They're barely publishing it in the US.
Yeah, the thing about long-running US comics is that you have no idea how well they will sell in your country.
Right.
So there's always the likelihood that they'll get canceled. Mm-hmm. And since they don't go into anthologies, they just disappear. They had to publish Starman as a series of miniseries in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
Sandman was put on hiatus like 3 times, but then again, it had been on hiatus in the US because it was late. Yeah, we had the first mini in Portugal, and the Brazilians published the ongoing until 15 or 16.
We had the first miniseries in Portugal.
Yeah, probably? We had the first miniseries in Portugal. No, but it was a Brazilian edition, and then I think we got the first 6 or 8 issues of the monthly. But there was the problem with Marvel's bankruptcy, forcing the Brazilian publisher to stop sending their stuff here, and that means they stopped sending everything, including their Image comics. But there's no point in selling. There's no point in having the rights to sell certain superhero comics if you don't have the rights to Marvel for that place, because Marvel is the ones superheroes that sell better, and everything comes attached.
So they would they put them all in one anthology, like a lead Marvel series, and then
No. But you can't. But if you're selling Marvel comics, the other magazines come in the same package, and you can distribute them easier, and they have visibility.
Okay.
If all you're selling is Spawn and Savage Dragon, you're not going to be able to put your comics anywhere.
Okay.
Forget it.
Even though they're separate comics.
Yeah, especially the thing is, no, some publishers around, especially in Italy, they had an Image magazine, and they would run all of the comics in all of their the early Image comics. They all ran together. They had a Spawn story and a Savage Dragon story and the Youngblood story and the Cyber Force story. The French did something when Lug or when they already had changed name to Samick because they were bought out by Lug were the first big ongoing publisher of Marvel in France, but although they didn't have the rights to every character. For example, Captain America and Conan were with a different publisher, Aredi Artima. But Lug had Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, the Champions, Star Wars, and beautiful painted covers. But in December '96, they had to stop publishing. And a year later, they brought back a few of their Marvel titles, but with different characters inside. And there was one magazine for the Top Cow characters. They put they had Weapon Zero and Witchblade stories inside.
That reminds me, at the comic shop this week, John, who works there, was showing me a new book came out called the Marvel Sticker Book. And it's they came out with the Marvel Value Stamp book like months ago. It's about the same size now. It's like 6 by 6 inches or so, maybe 6 by 8 inches. I don't know. And it's just sort of an art book, pretty thick, of all the Marvel stickers that were made over the years, like in the 70s and 80s mostly. Mm-hmm. And he's like, look through this. Tell me if there's something missing. And I'm looking through it, and sure enough, they have like all these characters from the 70s and the 80s. No Fantastic Four. I'm like, we're like, it's got to be a licensing thing, but did someone license the Fantastic Four sticker book material? Oh, I was like, we couldn't think of any way where they wouldn't be able to publish Fantastic Four stickers from 50 years ago in this book. It was just weird. I was like, there must be some weird licensing thing.
Conspiracy theory is probably Ike left over from the fact that Marvel didn't have the Fantastic Four
could be
or the X-Men, because they were Marvel events that happened where they should have been celebrating the Fantastic Four as part of it, and they were out. They were not in it. When it's like, that's the first family. That's where, Marvel started with the Fantastic Four being Marvel. And from what I understand from like reading between the lines and other people making making their predictions, what it is because Marvel is not making any Fantastic Four stuff because of the fact that the license is out from the movies.
Right.
And I heard it was like the X-Men and the Fantastic Four was in that limbo for a while. They didn't even have comics being produced for a short while too.
Right.
When the Marvel posters were being made around that time period, same thing. The X-Men and Fantastic Four were visually absent from it. And I think that's all just, again,
could be left over from that.
Yeah, I would say it would be left over from that.
That reminds me, I've told this story before. Early 90s when I worked in the bullpen, one of the things I did eventually there was I did the production on covers, which means like covers were their own. The people working on the interiors doing paste up and people working on the covers doing paste up, because covers needed extra care. So that's all you did paste up wise. And also one of the things and like this is the pre-digital age. George Roussos would usually do the color guides for the cover, and usually that was done without the logo on it. So then we'd have to indicate what, like we'd have the cover all pasted up. We'd put a cover sheet on it. Then we'd have to indicate which color logos were. We could not make green logos because Stan Lee said that green logos don't sell. Stan Lee hadn't been in there in 20 years, but still the institutional memory said Stan Lee says green logo, and it wasn't green logos don't sell. It was Stan Lee said green logos don't sell. We can't, no green logos. And it was just like, it wasn't until we went digital that we could show them on screen how good the green logo looked. that rule went out the window. But it was like that institutional memory stayed there for 20 something years. It was crazy.
The weird thing about that story, I heard the same story while I was there, but it wasn't green, it was yellow. Was the you couldn't have a yellow cover.
That might refer to the background. Like Scott Connor doesn't like those yellow colors. Connor. But no, green logos was definitely a Stan Lee thing.
Yeah, I remember. I want to say I was having that conversation with Flo, and there was this thing about doing a green cover, and he did not want to bring it to the editor because he did. I would say doing a yellow background cover, and it's like, but the yellow worked, but he was scared to show it to the editor. Yeah. And Flo was the one that said, no, let's show it to him, and that it worked. But it was a leftover from Stan. About doing a full yellow cover, so it's kind of weird how things were. Stan was traumatized by the green llama.
Yeah, that's the true. The comics that don't sell after a while, they stop bringing it to other countries. Yeah, I imagine so.
Yeah, because at Marvel and DC, you can rearrange the anthologies, and Rom the Space Knight was a hit with the readers but it started in the Hulk and then it moved to the X-Men. If Rom the Space Knight had been published as a standalone comic, it would not have sold well. It would have been canceled very quickly. But you run it inside a more successful character, and the public will find out it exists and will respond better. Yeah. On the other publishers, I think that there's the possibility. I'm not sure about the minutiae of the contracts, but most likely there's the insistence that the character has to appear on the cover, and if that happens, then the only way you can guarantee that is if you run the series on its own, and it'll be thinner and more expensive, and not as well characters that are not as well known. So you'll never know how long it'll last.
Mm-hmm. The French have had hardcover editions of some Image comics from the 90s. My wife went to Paris last year, and they always convinced me to bring me some of those. I failed.
I know they have Top Cow and Spawn. I doubt that the other. I'm not sure. I don't remember them having Savage Dragon being available, but I don't think Savage Dragon ever sold well in France. From Image, what sells particularly well is the collections of The Walking Dead.
Oh,
they get French numbers
and Saga, of course, I assume, because that sells.
Yeah, and Saga too. Saga not as much, not anymore.
No,
but the Kirkman stuff has been a consistently good seller, even after the series have ended.
And Terry Moore and the Parker girls keep chugging along here with issue 8. This is going to 10 again. His series have been going to 10 in recent years. So another good issue. I'm sure Europeans would like the Parker, but they probably wouldn't like black. Are there any black and white comics in Europe? Many?
Not at this stage.
Yeah. But
although even albums are there are occasionally some, but there are so many that are made with painted art or painted art on the computer,
right?
That doing a black and white comic, you're going to limit your audience,
right? And this is it's coming to its climax since it's 8 out of 10. But I'm sure they'd like this in Europe too. It's a good comic. Terry Moore stuff is good, but
Yeah.
the Parker girls were this. They're kind of retired now, but they're coming out of retirement. We're this sort of international fixer group.
Oh,
Like,
turns out French editions of Strangers in Paradise are quite common. These come out in they collect the story arcs in albums. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there are how many?
I know he collects everything and keeps things in print every now and then. So
14. Wow, this is successful. Yeah, there are
that's good to hear.
Yeah, there are 18 albums of the of originals of Strangers in Paradise.
I mean, it's probably his other stuff he can get over there too. There's probably one album each of like Echo and Rachel Rising.
Yeah, Ketchu's Revenge came out as a these are three. They have their own series, but they still have Strangers in Paradise on the cover, but they're considered a separate series.
Yeah, there could be like Parker Girls. Kachu was one of the characters in 5 years. Kachu was one of the characters in.
Yeah, they published Hecko. Okay, so this has 4, 5, 6 albums, and Rachel Rising. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Okay,
and different publishers. So I guess they like Terry Moore.
In this one, like I said, the girls were fixers, kind of worldwide, and if you needed some dirty work done, they'd do that or whatever. And they'd also like if you wanted someone kept an eye on, one of the Parker girls would become his girlfriend, basically. They'd be start a romantic relationship with whoever. And in this, there's some tech billionaire who found out one of his girlfriends was the Parker girls and killed her. That did not make Tamby, who was sort of the chief, very happy. So she gathered them all together, and they've been going after this billionaire tech guy. So it's been fun. Terry Moore stuff is always good. Let's see, the other book we got. I don't know if I only ordered issue 2 of this or put it on my pull list. I can't remember. I'll have to see when my final order cutoff comes. In Hell We Fight. They're having an adventure in hell. I like that house. But it's a story of, once again, another afterlife story. But this one, the afterlife is really a setting for these young people to have an adventure. It's a hellish adventure, but, hell isn't so bad a place that you can't have an adventure in it. They all have sort of weird powers, and they found an angel at the end of issue 1, so now she's joined them, and they got to figure out what to do with an angel in hell, and fun stuff like that. I think this might qualify as one where just flipping through it, the artistic style doesn't appeal to me that much, except for the house, really nice house. But reading it was fun. Who would I say this guy looks like? I don't know. Little Mike Mignola in him. Little Carmen Infantino. Little manga. But we'll have to see if I have this on my pull list or not. I think I could put it there. After 2 issues, I like it. But once again, you can see how quickly I can get my fill of heaven, hell, and afterlife stories.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of them. Is Usagi published in Europe?
Oh yeah, the comics published regularly in manga size, so they disguise it as a manga. So there are 30 volumes. The manga has been making inroads very fast in France, and more than half of the sales nowadays are manga. But the people who read manga don't read other comics, and vice versa. Not there's some overlap, but they're different audiences. There's not much crossover. So the people who read manga are more willing to read in black and white than the people who like albums. They are republishing Usagi in color in US size, but as trade paperbacks. So that's on volume 3.
Wasn't the hiatus in X-Men and FF due to the movie rights? Well, it wasn't. It was due to Ike Perlmutter, the president of Marvel, being upset about the movie rights. They belonged to Fox, and Marvel Studios got it back. Hickman was called in to do Secret Wars. And it wasn't a coincidence. It was the rumor started that Ike didn't want Marvel doing X-Men and FF comics due to the movies, due to them not having the movie rights. And I 100% believe that.
They were pushing the Inhumans, as if anybody wants to read the Inhumans.
Right.
Right. They were pushing the closest thing they had to mutants.
Right.
And
I 100% believe that it was all Ike being spiteful.
Mm-hmm.
I got no problem believing that. Heard it from people who should know.
Yeah.
Love Terry Moore. Yeah. Rachel Rising and Echo are two of my favorite. Yeah. Love his stuff. Matter of fact, in the I'll do an unboxing of it if I get it on Monday, if UPS doesn't go on strike. That in with those comics are about half a dozen Strangers in Paradise issues from I think volume 2 that I don't have. I've been slowly filling in whatever issues I don't have over the years, and once I get them all, I'm gonna read all of Strangers in Paradise. I don't have any of those in collected editions or anything. So, and the original issues you can find, they're like $2.50 in fine condition at mycomicshop.com when they have them in stock. So, I've been filling that in. I don't have to look and see how many I need, but I've probably got 95% of them. I think I have a third printing of the first issue. That's good enough for me. I don't need a first printing. There are some I've noted, like when an indie comic, if an indie comic ever gets any value, it's always just the first appearance. Like that I think that first issue of Strangers in Paradise has some value to it. The very first Usagi Yojimbo is the only Usagi Yojimbo that has value to it. The one from, was it Critters? And it's like every other issue of Usagi Yojimbo. Nope. Find them in the dollar bin or whatever.
Which is funny because the collected editions are the ones that are hard to find.
Yeah. That often happens when the collected editions go out of print. They can rise up in price. Huh. And here's one more. The last comic of the week. Dark Ride, issue number 7. One of the things I like about this is I think it's only about a 24-page interior, but it's got a cardstock cover, so it feels good in your hand. Mm-hmm. It would be really flimsy if it didn't have this nice cardstock cover. So I appreciate that about it. But this is the horror comic about the guy who made a deal with a demon in his youth to fund him to make a horror theme park. And now it's many years later. He's got his 2 grown daughter and son helping him run the theme park. And this issue was all about how his children disappointed him. Because he was trying to because nobody else knows that there's real demonic activity going on at this theme park, not even his 2 kids. So he's trying to, they're finding out that there's demonic activity going on. And he's like, no, they're not. You're both just disappointments to your father. So it was actually pretty horrific. and this one character here, that woman right there, her brother got a job at the theme park and then died under mysterious circumstances. He supposedly committed suicide by hanging, but we know some sort of demon killed him. So she snuck on and running a podcast trying to figure out what happened to her brother. And she tells him, and the father's even like to her, this complete stranger, well, I can see you're a disappointment too. Your brother killed himself, but you're too crazy to realize. It was like this guy right here was really the evil, screwed up his children father. So it was a good issue about a bad father. But I've been liking, like I said, it's the same guys who did Birthright, which I enjoyed a whole lot. So I've been liking this. I don't know how many issues this is going either, because I think it's open-ended. Because Birthright was around 54 issues or something. And it was open-ended for a long time.
Are those two stories taking place in the same universe, or they're just
I don't
different things
know.
altogether?
I imagine they could.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's no reason they couldn't. Because Birthright was all about Terranos was this other dimension that has magic and broke through from Earth to Earth. They wanted to sort of use Earth's resources to take things over. So I imagine if there's magic in Birthright, there can certainly be supernatural stuff too.
Right. Okay. I was just curious if they did a obvious connection or not.
There's no obvious there might be a hidden connection that I haven't picked up on, but there's no obvious connection that I've noticed. Who knows? We might find out this demon was someone from Terranos.
Right. That's possible, and they're just calling them demons.
Right. Uh-oh, I'm getting thunder.
Ah.
Are you going to get another flood?
I don't think so. That was they said a once in 1,000 years storm. There's a 0.01% chance of it happening. What's Paulo got for us here?
Another Read, Rip, and Slab.
All right.
With Portuguese comics. This was an ongoing title called World of Adventures. At this stage, it was bi-weekly. These came out around 1986, 1987.
Hitler and his E.T.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, was that an ongoing story, or is this one of those? This is that particular story in that issue.
Sometimes they would break up French albums into chapters. Other times they would run one full story. Other times they would have short stories. It depended on what they needed, because this was only a 30-page black and white magazine.
Mundo de Adventuras.
Mundo de Aventuras.
That reminded me of the Doom Patrol because of the raft guy.
Yeah.
I would slab the one with the elephant because I really like that cover. I would read the one with the giant mummy. And I would rip the one with Hitler on it because it's Hitler.
Yeah, it's tough getting around that.
It's definitely tough getting around it. But
you have to ask. Yes, exactly. Why is the alien around Hitler?
That's a good question. I kind of want to know that.
That's true. But I am curious. It's like,
what year did you say it was? E.T. the Extraterrestrial was popular, wasn't it?
Yeah. Also, the cover on 556 is by a renowned Portuguese artist, Luís Louro.
That's nicely drawn, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All
but
right.
yeah, I would read the one with the giant mummy. Who's chasing
Slab elephant, read Hitler, rip 659. Dolphin, Hitler's mustache. Rip Hitler, read 569, slab Kamalo.
I think that story was made in Portugal. It wouldn't be out of the ordinary to set stories in Africa.
And I would replace the guy running with the dolphin.
That's Loro?
That middle one.
Cool.
Yeah, I'll try to rustle up some covers from stuff he did one of these days.
All right, I'm gonna have to be the one who reads the Hitler one. Okay, I'll let you all know what's in it. I'll read the Hitler one. I'll slab the middle one, and I'll have to rip up the elephant. But the lightning's already hitting that elephant. He's done.
It's a toast elephant.
And I'm gonna replace the mummy with a mummy dolphin.
Okay.
In the middle one.
I would replace the guy running with a dolphin.
That's what I said I would do. I would replace the guy running with the dolphin.
Yeah, that's the best because a dolphin running from a mummy.
Yeah, he's doing that North by North run on that cover. There's something very Doom Patrol about that cover too.
Yeah, well, like I said, it is. It reminds me it's the Negative Man there.
Yeah.
Question for Paulo: who edited Mundo do Adventurous?
Magalhães was the editor for a while. So yeah, he was the father of one of the best editors we've had in the business. And even she's retired now, and her kids now have their own publishing company. So you have a rare case of 3 generations working in comics.
We have to get some Luis Loro comics to Mr. Rosser and Mr. Ramos. I believe they would love them, don't you think?
Yeah, but they're not available in English.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Sorry about that, at Paulo Costa. Yeah, they're not available in English. That makes them harder to read. But with Google Translate, you aim it at the comic book page, and it just translates the balloons for you. It's kind of crazy on screen.
Yeah, it's gonna be very clunky as well.
I'd have to set up the iPad on a tripod or something. Put the comic underneath it. Dark Ride.
Looking up Savage Dragon trade paperbacks, I'm really curious on where to jump onto, but part of me kind of like is thinking start from the beginning and go through the whole ride.
They just put out a hardcover volume of the first, 20 issues or something. So there is Savage Dragon Archives or something. I don't know if it's called Archives.
I saw Archives.
They're black. I think the Archives are the black and white ones.
Yeah.
But they just came out with a new Savage Dragon Deluxe Edition hardcover. J-Rock takes a look at it on his channel.
Now that I'm thinking about it, the ideal way to reprint Savage Dragon would be for Eric Larson to separate them into periods.
Yeah.
Because that way that there's a certain consistency on the stories that are there. Because, for example, starting when Savage Dragon becomes leader of the SOS, start from there instead of putting volume 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because we know what happens to volume 5.
Yep. Nobody buys it, which is why he hasn't put them out in hardcovers before. It makes me wonder how far he's going to get. We all know what happens with volume 5.
Oh, well, there aren't exactly arcs. I mean, the stories continue, but you don't have arcs. It's like it's a true soap. It's a true soap.
Yeah, it's like comics used to be.
Yeah.
Before they were marketed for the trade. That's how he writes Savage Dragon. The kind of ebbs and flows, but there's always a sort of to be continued next issue.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, Captain Tootsie appears in the stories.
It was in this issue. Savage Dragon was trying to convince Captain Tootsie to move to San Francisco with him. Because he was trying to get some of the heroes to go on the team with him. But
Yeah,
Captain Tootsie was staying in Vancouver.
the Golden Age Daredevil hasn't appeared in a while.
No,
Did they
yeah,
but they didn't kill him, or did they? They killed the kids.
right.
What were the Daredevil sidekicks?
Newsboys.
No,
Yeah,
not
the
the-
something I can't remember their names. The something kids or
yeah,
the Whiz
remember.
kids. I don't know.
something like that. Yeah, something like that. But they
But yeah,
killed the
they
kids.
ended up all dying. Was it one of the monster attacks that killed them?
No, I think they were murdered by one of the by Mako or something.
Oh, that me or Dart, one or the other. They were
Mhm.
both of them went
Yeah.
around murdering people for a while.
Yeah.
Mako was just eating them.
Yeah.
I once
that's
saw
well,
a chart of that Mako from the Savage Dragon influenced all other shark creatures in comic books because no one used to. Now everyone draws shark creatures like Mako.
Mhm.
They used to draw them. If they had one, they kind of looked like more sharkish and not fearsome, kind of. It's like no one knew how to draw shark creatures before Eric Larson drew Mako, kind of thing. Then after everybody saw that, they went, ah. Now that's what they all look like.
Mhm. Well, we need to come up with a better nemesis for Mako, and so we need to bring Aquaman's dolphin into the Savage Dragon universe.
DC already has Dolphin, right? Or they did in the 60s.
Yeah, they
Mhm.
had
That one famous
That-
cover.
yeah.
Yeah, but Dolphin she appeared in Peter David's Aquaman.
Oh, okay.
I think she wanted to get with him, but Aqualad was interested in her as well.
I think I read one issue of Peter David's Aquaman. That was it. It was okay. There was nothing wrong with it, except it was Aquaman.
Mm-hmm.
Ah,
Yeah,
but he had a beard and a hook this time.
Yeah, that's what he said. 20 years ago, they decided to do the Amadora Festival dedicated to American comics. So in something that's extremely rare, they got American artists to come to Portugal and even superhero ones. So we got Peter David, and Peter David explained the whole process of pitching Aquaman. So I wanted to write Aquaman. And now I'm gonna make him grim and gritty, with long hair and the beard, and I'm gonna rip out his hand and replace it with a hook. What?
I'm gonna make him a sea pirate.
Har.
As I've said before, the problem I have with Aquaman is there's no reason for his stories to take place underwater. They're the same stories that take place on dry land, except they're underwater.
Mm-hmm.
No. At least like Submariner stories, especially in the beginning, were all this powerful creature coming out of the sea and wrecking dry land.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't actually take place under the ocean much.
Yeah, because Namor is all about, I'm going to conquer the surface world. Yeah. Aquaman is all like, surface world, go away. I'm down. I want to be down here with my dolphins.
The animals swim around instead of walking on the ground.
that is. You used to have an octopus in the Golden Age stories.
Oh, that's right. I think he did.
Yeah, he had more like the animal sidekicks.
Mm-hmm. Did the octopus ever appear in the modern age?
It appeared in the movie. I believe playing the drums. But as far as the modern age, not that I recall. He wasn't in any of the Peter David stories. Mm-hmm. And I only know the animal sidekicks if they appeared in the cartoon, because I did watch the Aquaman cartoon.
How long ago?
Early stuff.
How long ago were the Peter David Aquamans? Do they count as modern anymore?
Probably 1994.
No.
Well, it is everything. It turns modern in 1982.
It's
Well,
been the modern age since 1982.
What would you say? Not just for comic, let's say for comic. Would you consider something modern that happened? I wouldn't go past 15 years. If you ask me where my cutoff for modern is, I would say 15 years from present is the longest I'll go. Maybe even 10.
Yeah, 15 years would be a dropping off point for some people. I've been reading comics for 15 years. I'm going to stop now.
And for most people, it's much shorter. But I'm saying for a long time reader, I'm like 15. I think every you can't call something modern that's old. That's older than 15 years old.
Right, because it's like I forget what is considered vintage. And I think vintage is 20. When it hits the 20-year mark, it's a vintage.
Right.
So, yeah.
Warren Ellis's authority is vintage.
Yeah.
The thing is, the whole writing for the trade bit, we get the impression that there aren't that many stories because they take up a lot of space compared to what went on until the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So something that would be published in 1 or 2 issues, not except 6 or 12, or they do a whole event around it full of one-shots that nobody reads.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why we still think that, oh, Kamala Khan, she's a new character.
Right.
Right.
If I don't know they exist, they're new.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I always I've mentioned Barry Dudder before, who was an editor at Marvel in the 90s. Now he sells comic books out there in LA. And, he posts his adventures selling comic books. And every time he posts something like, I got this, there was because he likes to cherry pick. Of course, he wants to buy only the ones he can sell. And he's like, oh, I got a bunch of good comics. The other ones were just crappy modern stuff from 1993. And I'm always like, this is, and I always say, I'm like, this is my usual reminder telling you that nothing from 1993 is modern anymore. It was 30 years ago. And he's like, hey, I'm all for them coming up with new names. No one has, though. No one has come up with any that stuck. I was like, yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah,
But,
they keep trying, and it doesn't. You got gold, silver, and bronze, and then modern.
Bronze finally stuck. Bronze didn't stick for 20 years.
Mm. Yeah.
I remember they even tried to consider one of the Image Age and call it after a company. And it's like, that just seems, yeah, they did a big mark, but I don't know if they were big enough to call a whole age after that.
I once heard someone say that a new age should have started. They start the new age, and they said this like 20 years ago with Legends of the Dark Knight #1 in its multiple covers. That was the beginning of a new age because after that, multiple covers became the norm for a long while. I think we're in the second age of multiple covers now.
Right.
But I always thought that was an interesting idea. All that nonsense is Savage Dragons is what makes me buy the comic every month. I just hope Eric doesn't kill Malcolm's wife. Yeah, I like her. She's annoyingly fun. Old for me was the late 80s. New was when I started back in 98. Yeah, old for me was the 60s.
Given the way I was reading superheroes when I started, I have my threshold for old and new is way before I'm born. So I guess I count 1968 as the threshold for between old and new, because that's when Stan stops writing most of the stuff that he does. Taranko is doing Nick Fury, and Neil Adams is becoming famous. So
when it comes to old and new, especially with comics, because when comics were something you bought as a child, and
Mhm.
it's something I still buy as an adult. When I think about, let's say when I was in high school in the early 80s, an old comic to me would be one from the 60s. A really old comic would be one from the 50s. I didn't even see anything from before then.
Mhm.
But how time, is different when you're older. Like a comic from the early 2000s now isn't as old as a comic from the 60s
Uh,
was
Here's
when
the
I
funny
was in
thing:
1984.
the comics I just showed for that Read, Rip, and Slab.
Yeah.
I was reading. I was already reading some superheroes, and I was definitely reading Disney at the time. Those would be modern. The
Yeah.
ones that I showed, although they were contemporaries, they would be old to me because they were in black and white.
Right.
It made them look cheap.
Jared, you're making me feel old. I've been reading comics for 28 years, and I can't believe how fast time has passed when I look up some of my first comics from 95. Yeah.
Yeah, yes.
I have been buying going and buying comics since I was 10 years old in, let's say, 1976. That's when I first started. I had comics before then, but that's when I first collected them and started buying them regularly. And I'm not one of these people who had a period where they gave up on comics. Ever from 10 till now, I've been at the comic shop just about every week. When I was in college, I could only go once a month, but I still went. And since then, it's like I still go every week. So it's like, when I think about that, it's like, it's crazy how much time that is. Gold, silver, bronze, copper, latex.
But even copper, it hasn't stuck, and we can't figure out a proper age. There are a lot of people who want to. Most people, in fact, who want to separate the ages, they want to use Crisis and Secret Wars and Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen as the cutoff point between they have the bronze finishing. Then, to me, the bronze ends in 81, 82, because then that's when Marvel and DC start creating comics specifically for the direct market. And although we're talking about stuff like Kazar and Camelot 3000, not the regular characters,
Right.
they make up the difference because the storytelling is not the same, the distribution is not the same, and they bring in all those new guys, Capital Comics, First Comics, with them. That's when they also start in full in 81, 82. The indies making color comics.
You know when the Bronze Age should have ended? When Ms. Mystic #1 came out.
That was it.
That's
81, right?
That's one of the first really big indie books to come out.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Mystic #1. Even though nobody remembers it today because it was pointless.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's one of the first Eclipse comics, right?
Yeah, I know. Was that still Pacific? It might have still been Pacific Comics.
Yeah, well, Pacific. Yeah, they started in
Might have been.
Yeah, 81.
Yeah, that was sort of the real. I mean, Kirby had Captain Victory out, but I don't think that was nearly as big as Neil Adams' Ms. Mystic.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big event in 1981 or whenever it came out.
So yeah, you agree.
Yeah,
we have a lot of stuff in around that 81, 82.
That's a good point to pick as the end of the Bronze Age, when the comic shops started becoming prime movers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because again, it's like, are we staying with precious metals, or are we switching it after that to, like,
who knows,
the events, or what you call it? Because it's like, once is the Chromium Age is when we did those covers.
The Chromium Age.
That type of thing.
Could be. I mean, that 91, 92. So 91. So it's actually it's a little bit early, but I don't want to give those comics that much importance, because they did the Valiant investors forced shooter to put out those Nintendo and wrestling comics with gimmick covers.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody cared about those. So I suppose it would be 1992 because you have the death of Superman and Image coming out. So the Copper Age ends in 92, and then something else begins. Although then we have 1995 when Marvel buys Heroes World, and then everything collapses. There's
The
a
Dark
point
Ages.
there. Yeah, there's a point there, and I don't want to do a 3-year era, but
Yeah.
so Superman and the death of Superman and Image beginning are important, especially because Eclipse goes out of business in 91. So does First. No, Eclipse continues until 94. Yeah, but First goes out of business, and that's important because a lot of the quality color indie comics are at First. Nexus. Also, that's one of the. That's when one of the Comico bankruptcies happens as well, right? Around 91, because they had 2 bankruptcies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wasn't keeping track of Comico then. I don't even
Yeah.
know what happened to them.
Yeah, but I suppose this warrants some studying and somebody sitting down and collating data and try to come up with an explanation. But since we still haven't figured out when the nobody seems to agree when the Bronze Age ends, then trying to set up a definite beginning and end for the Copper Age isn't going to be easy either.
Mhm. See,
Yeah, 'cause
Damien
it's
Dyer, I
like-
didn't really give up. I bought an issue or two until I got back in 87 to 91, then 98 to present. What were the issue or two you would buy when you weren't really collecting that much? Was it like a Spider-Man and a Batman or something like that? Because I imagine that they say that happens to like at different times people cut back on their comics, but always buy like Spider-Man and Batman, that like one super popular one that they always liked. So, but I never, not having bought Superman and Batman in decades, that was never me though. But I could always find comics I liked. There's a lot out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when Marvel went bankrupt, we went without Marvel and DC for a couple of years. During that time, I bought Italian comics.
Ah, Italian. It's from Italy.
Yeah, and before that, I wouldn't give them the second look. They were next to the superheroes and the Disneys, but I didn't care. And then all of a sudden, I have a drought of comics, and let's pick up this Western thing called Tex and see if it's interesting.
Yeah, I was just looking at on my blog at radiantcomics.com. All my links are at jaredosborne.com. I've been doing my weekly video haul on YouTube, which gets posted on a link to it gets posted on my blog. I was writing down what comics I bought. I just come home, just type out so you can see a list going all the way back to, I don't know when, 2006, 2007. And like I said, there was a period when like 2008, 2009, that's when I was buying a lot of trades, because there just weren't a lot until like the Image Renaissance. There just weren't a lot of indie books out there for me. So I look back and I'm like, I was just buying collected editions of stuff because they looked a little interesting or they were cheap. And I'm like, wow, I bought Usagi Yojimbo and 2 collected editions this week. It was like, whoa, I really was having a hard time that in that one period finding comics to buy. And then Saga came out, and all of a sudden there was a million indie comics. So I'll always like Saga just for that. All the people trying to copy him made a lot of good comics. Then there's the last Sunday, I ended up having to reorganize one of my shelves of comics, the one over there. Just move stuff around. I was for some reason, for all these years, on one of my shelves, I have my complete series, usually short indie series, when I say complete series. And I have my incomplete series separate. I think it was just because the incomplete series sometimes are so small that you can't find them among the complete ones at times. Finally, I was like, I just want to integrate them all. Just because I'm like, is that complete? I can't remember anymore. I'm old. Put them all together. So I put them all together. But in doing so, I'd occasionally pick something like, there was a book called Epic Kill. Image book, 12 issues. I don't know, when was it from? 2013, 2014. I'm just like, what is this book? And it took me a few minutes to even remember what it was. I was like, because I read it once a decade ago, shelved it, and never thought about it again. And there's probably more than one series like that on that shelf. But it was and it was one of these that was supposed to be a 5-issue miniseries and ended up being a 12-issue maxi series. And it was about the woman was dressed like Uma Thurman in that Kill Bill. There we go. Dressed kind of like her, and she was some ultimate killing assassin machine or something. I'm like, and I didn't even recognize the artist's name. I'm like, I must have read this, but so it's funny how the years can go by. But moving your stuff around, you go, what's this book? That doesn't happen with Spider-Man.
No, not at all. It's like every now and then I would go through a comic book box and I'll pull out a black and white comic of something that I tried and have no real memory of it. Look through it and it's like, okay, I remember the artwork, and that's the only issue that exists. Nothing ever came out from it, because I would try many indies titles or pick something up at a con and it just never went anywhere.
Right.
Where it was like, oh, there was something that attracted me to it, and usually it's the artwork, and it's like, I really like this art, and never found what the artist did from that.
Oh,
And
especially if you're doing cons, there's
yeah,
people trade stuff with you, and so you can end up with all sorts of stuff you just accumulated.
Yeah, exactly. So there are plenty of books like that where it's like, I gave this a try for some reason, or someone gave it to me, and it's like, this was cool at the time, and it's a product of its time too, which is cool because there's a snapshot of, I know what was popular at this time, and this was done in black and white because everyone was doing black and white books, and it's kind of superhero-ish, but also not. So there's plenty like that.
If I saw something that caught my eye, even an old 70s spirit, yeah. Okay, so that's the stuff he was buying. Anything that caught his eye, buy those one or two comics. I purge books pretty regularly because of limits. Me too. It's getting harder and harder to purge books, even in terms of where to get rid of them.
I don't purge. Occasionally, I take one out and give it away.
Yeah,
but I have about 150 books that I don't have a place to put them.
I still have my Jerry, who used to work with him. I still have all his books out in the garage. I mean, look, I'm like, what am I going to do with these? He gave them to me right before COVID hit because he was moving apartments. I'm like, I got to throw these out. Are you going to take them? I still haven't. I looked through them, about half of them, and I haven't gone back to them since. I'm going to make a video looking for them all.
That's how I got most of my science fiction collection. A colleague of mine from a different newspaper, he moved house. The house was smaller. His wife wanted all that paper gone. So I got about 90% of his collection.
Wow.
I had brought over one suitcase. Figured should have plenty of room. I brought back 6 suitcases full of paperbacks.
Wow. Well, on that note, we should let Paulo read the paperback and get to sleep.
See ya.
So y'all have a good night out there. And we will catch you next time.
Take care, everybody.